stay there.
Holding a plate for my husband.
Okay, I'll go put it back.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is the Reverend Chip Larimore. I am the priest, rector here at Christ Episcopal Church, where Simon was actually a parishioner a number of years ago when he lived here in Sausalito. Simon was also a friend of mine for more than 30 years. We met when I was on staff at Grace Cathedral in San Francisco, and I was a baby priest back then. I'd like to read for you a prayer that we say in our church every Sunday. It's a prayer that is important to us, and I in particular wanted to read it for this service because I want you to know that while we are a Christian community, I know that Simon's family and friends were a diverse group and come from many traditions, and I want you to know that you're welcome here. As people of faith who are followers of Christ, we join in prayer with those who know God through other traditions, those who journey the way of the Hindus or follow the path of the Buddha, those indigenous people who revere the wisdom of their ancestors or the rhythms of the earth, our sisters and brothers of Islam, and the Jewish people from whom we come. We pray that as people of faith, we may all work together to make God's love known to all. Amen. To begin our service today, I'd like to ask you to all stand. Let us pray. O God of grace and peace, we remember before you this day our brother Simon. We thank you for giving him to us, his family and friends. To know and to love as a companion on our earthly pilgrimage. In your boundless compassion, console us who mourn. Give us faith to see in death the gate of eternal life, so that in quiet confidence we may continue our course on earth, until by your call we are reunited with those who have gone before us. Most merciful God, whose wisdom is beyond our understanding, deal graciously with Vanessa and Evie and Bea and Rachel and all of Simon's family and loved ones in their grief. Surround them with your love, that they may not be overwhelmed by their loss, but have confidence in your goodness and strength to meet the days to come. Amen. Please be seated. I told my family that this service was going to be uniquely difficult for me, and I guess I was right. A few weeks before Simon died, I was visiting with him, and as many people who knew him did, he shared some poems with them. And he shared one with me that touched me deeply, and I told him I wanted to read it at the service that I knew we were eventually going to hold. The title of the poem is Salida Sunrise, which is Exiting Sunrise. The sun shines shyly on endless grasses that cling to the rolling plains, draped on the shoulders of the giants eclipsed against the mountain skies. Shimmering as if stardust fallen from the heavens has settled on every blade, illuminating the dreams of otherness that exist in us all. It slowly fades to insubstantial glimpses of a world that is always there for those who look beyond what they can see. The wind, a musician making music from the infinite stems that move like broken strings of an instrument that can only tell the truth, gifts us with a song whose chords strike a tune we all arrive with when born on this earth. Tauntingly plucking at the handles of doors deep inside us, closed by life's journey, and yet the very doors we must step back through to reach our grails. I seek illumination inside that will brighten the dark corridors leading to those potent doors. I seek a place where the stardust will land on me, bringing with it the magic I think I have lost, the gentle glow by which the story of my life can be read and come to life. What will ignite the truth laying dormant so long, dry and desiccated, yet ready to burst into the scourging fire that brings new life? I found it not in the grandiose heavens above bathing us with possibility, but in the eyes that pierced me through, reflecting the truth inside myself I wanted to see, and that in return was an opening to dimensions and places that hitherto only existed in the hopeful realms of my dreams. And just like standing, gazing at the heavens, I stand and look at those eyes and their infinite possibility, the stardust glowing inside, and I see a soul I feel I have known for eons. There is no thought now, only being, only allowing, only seeing the limitless love inside us all. With that, I'd like to introduce Paul and Steve Littler, Stephen's brothers. Simon's brothers.
Right, I think Paul and I'd like to add our thanks to you all for coming today to share this celebration of Simon's life. We'd like to start by giving you an insight into Simon's early life from a brotherly perspective, sharing with you just a few of the experiences that went into shape his life. So we should start when he was born, on the 26th of August 1969. Paul and I, we were being looked after by our next door neighbour when our dad came home to tell us of this momentous occasion. He unfortunately had to compete with the High Chaparral, which was on TV at the time, the end of which was far more important than the knowledge that we now had a new baby brother. Simon started school at Meadow Lane Infants before moving on to Nottingham High Prep. It was during those years his passion for cooking was born, helping our mum in the kitchen as we all did, especially in the autumn time when it's all hands on deck, picking pears, plums and apples to be bottled or frozen, and for the not so perfect fruit to be made into chutney, of course.
Yeah.
So now you know where Simon got his overwhelming desire to convert any and all fruits into chutney. You'd be either eaten at home or sold at the local fairs. Being a blonde-headed boy with a very winning smile, he became very adept at getting out of trouble, more often than not, passing the blame onto, for some of his misdemeanors, onto his brothers. And he also revelled in embarrassing us both in front of our girlfriends. When he moved up from Nottingham High School Prep to the senior school, he started to play rugby and keep fit. Passions he would continue for much of his life. And this strangely transformed one of the smallest children in his year to the 6 foot 2 inch, huge but huggable bear of a man that we all know and loved. He joined the Cadet Army Force, rising to the highest rank of Regimental Sergeant Major in his final year. And at army training camps, he got involved in the British Army Coating Corps, which fed his love for cooking even more. And as you can see now where Simon got all his portion sizes from. It was also during his school years that his love of music was ignited. Singing in our church and the school choir, and when it came to playing an instrument, he followed our dad's footsteps and learnt to play the piano. But then decided this was just not quite enough. So he then picked on the biggest instrument in the orchestra, the double bass. Mary, as Simon called it, was often seen being transported on the local buses to and from school. Over these years, school years, he became an avid gardener, following in his mum and dad's footsteps. But as always, Simon had to go a little over the top and persuade them having chickens in the garden what they really wanted. The result was half a dozen chicks, including a cockerel who got his name of Rufus, and which Simon taught to jump up into his arms when he was small, but then insisted on still jumping into his arms when he was a full-grown cockerel, and wondered why you ended up on your backside. But as you all know, this passion for keeping poultry was repeated many times over the years, when hens, bantams and ducks became part of Simon's family life.
During the holidays, Simon followed in my footsteps and became a wine waiter at a locally famous restaurant called Grange Farm. The head wine waiter, a guy called Owen Smith, he was massively enthusiastic about wines and he loved to spread his knowledge and teach others. And this was the start of Simon's wine journey. He started his university career studying civil engineering at the University of Essex, which turned out not to be for him, before moving to study geology at Derby University, which, as some of you know, stood in good stead later on in life when he combined both his wine knowledge and geology in his quest to produce high-quality wines. In the year off between leaving Essex and starting Derby University, he ran a wine bar in Leicester, building on his wine knowledge and starting his love of sharing his enthusiasm for good food with other people. This, together with further work at Grange Farm, Simon being a sponge for Owen's teaching, really cemented his passion for wine. Simon's first real job was a company called English China Clays, very apt for Simon, before moving on to a civil engineering company called Amy, relocating to Henley, where he bought his first car, a blue open-top NG midget sports car. However, this was also the start of the loss of Simon's lovely blonde locks. With the roof down, it literally blew his hair out. There is a solution. Simon's solution was to wear what became totally synonymous with him, his ever-present hats. So that's where it came from. I was fortunate to be working down near Henley, where Simon was living for a couple of years, spending many a night in his local, the White Hart, drinking beers and driving around the Chiltern Hills in his little MG, visiting vineyards, we do have them in the UK, farm shops, bakeries, and with Simon continued to play rugby for his local Henley team. Visits from Simon for both Steve and I were occasions to behold, with Simon leaving even after a short visit with the house looking like a tornado had hit. Unknown and strange foods in the fridge and cupboards, and enough to last several weeks. Multiple newspapers, magazines everywhere, and he always left his mark. He realised that his real passion was wine rather than civil engineering, and so he joined the Antique Wine Company, selling high-end vintage wine, mostly sourced from French cellars. And after a period in the UK, he became the Antique Wine Company's rep in the USA, which is where his American journey began. Those early days living in the USA quite often confused Simon though, and there was one unforgettable Christmas when Simon kindly thought he would send me some sausages from the then English champion sausage butcher in the English Lake District. Very Simon thing to do. Simon has always ordered a goodly amount, but he got his pounds to kilogram conversions wrong. You see where this is going. So when a refrigerated semi-trailer truck pulled outside our house, with a whole pallet of Cumberland sausages, we knew straight away Simon had to be involved somewhere along the line. And of course, when we told Simon, he just laughed his socks off. Right from the beginning, Simon had a zest for life. A dreamer, yes. But Simon had a never-say-die attitude to everything. His cup was always half full, and in so many ways, positively overflowing most of the time. Simon was so giving of his time and energy, so passionate and enthusiastic about everything that was important to him, be that his family, both close and extended, friends, wine, cooking, gardening, health, well-being, and the list could go on. And who knew he was a poet too? Our brother. So just picking up on that last note, I'm going to hand back to Steve, who's going to read a poem from Simon that he wrote age 9 to our mum, and it's titled, Within the Gardens of My Heart.
Within the gardens of my heart, where flowers of remembrance bloom, blossoms of every colour grow wherever there is room. Forget-me-nots so starting blue, lilies of every hue, and purple velvet pansies too, telling me of your love for you, and roses that will always grow, whatever be the weather, whose fragrance are memories of times we spent together.
Hi, I'm Pete Harrison. Vanessa asked me to talk a little bit about Simon's time at Global Wine Company. We met back in 1998, but worked together for from 2005 to 2010. Working with Simon is not your typical work experience. It's very, very different. It started with the traveling, and we traveled a lot together for several years. To New York City many times, wine regions, Vail, Europe, also Omaha, Nebraska. Everywhere. And it was always very much a very similar trip. When you travel with Simon, the first thing is you learn to walk very quickly. You just have to keep up. He's in such a rush to get everywhere we're going. Also, serve as his valet. There are satchels, there are hats, there are things to take care of, tend to, he might leave them behind. You just have to make sure everything keeps moving along. Interestingly, one of the things that got me is, even on a short business trip to New York, there would be multiple hats. Not just one hat for that trip, 2, maybe 3 different hats. There was also never any fast food. You made time for a proper sit-down breakfast, then a lunch. There was an afternoon tea, and then often an extravagant dinner. With wines, often a celebrity chef would just show up. It was fascinating. There is no exception to this travel routine. Even when we were in a rush, we did all these things. And I loved it. It was wonderful. Over the years, and interesting, thank you for confirming some of these things, I learned that Simon's lifetime career has included many different jobs, roles. He was a geologist, thank you, race car driver, rugby player, chef, restaurant owner, wine expert, winemaker, mentor, entrepreneur, CEO. Pretty amazing. We always had a lot of laughs trying to just figure out that exact timeline and how that all fit together. But eventually it did all check out. Simon did everything, but especially he did wine really, really well. At Global Wine, Simon and I would go on these trips to big companies to try to convince them that our little company was qualified to run their national wine program. And honestly, we didn't really have a very good chance of pulling this off. But you wouldn't know it. That never stopped Simon. We would walk into these huge, intimidating boardrooms lined with executives from these different companies, really all, I think, ready to say no to us. Simon, take off his hat, often hand it to me, make some charming comments to the group, serve some wine, often, and then launch into the pitch. Simon had this way of connecting with everyone in these meetings personally, helping them see that they could be even more than they had considered or thought. It was really powerful and amazing to watch. At the New York Times, to the publisher of the New York Times, Simon explained how they should shift their business out of newspaper advertising into wines, just like the Sunday Times had done. This was a new concept to them. They were surprised to sort of hear it and consider it, but somehow they agreed. To the very quirky Midwest family at Omaha Steaks, Simon somehow convinced them that American consumers at their cookouts with Omaha Steaks should replace the beer with red wine. And that worked. And probably most amazing, to the president and board of Williams-Sonoma across many pretty intense meetings, Simon just passionately explained to them that their brand was about entertaining and that fine wines were a natural part of that, and of course they should be selling wine, along with recipe pairings and the whole Williams-Sonoma lifestyle. That worked too. Simon was a force of nature in these meetings. Those companies and other companies simply, he just did not take no for an answer. We would charge through these meetings and somehow get to the end of them, and they were nodding their heads, yes. That yes, your tiny little Sausalito wine company should run our national wine program. Then Simon and I would travel home and back to the team at Global Wine to share with them the good news of the new partner we had signed and all the things we had signed up to do. Global Wine was chaotic. It was definitely dysfunctional at times. There are many stories there, many Christmas party stories I am unable to tell in a church, but it was a very fun place to work. There was always plenty of wine, like you might think, but also always tea, biscuits, and then just lots of laughter all around the room. Simon helped bring out the best in everyone there, and somehow it all just worked. That was 15 years ago at Global Wine, and I was thrilled to already see so many people here today from the Global Wine years. I think just showing you the impact that Simon had on all of our lives. That's what I'll remember the most about Simon, how one person could have such a positive impact on so many people. His gift was being able to lift everyone up. It's such a powerful legacy. Personally, my favorite moment of Simon is him lifting up my wife, Sue. Every time they met, no matter the situation, lifting her up in the air and swinging her in this giant bear hug, both laughing and giggling. That was the best. In closing, Simon kept making chutney in America, as you know. And, because of course he did. Vanessa mentioned to me there may be some chutney at the reception. If anybody hasn't possibly tried it yet, please do, preferably with a fine cheese. That's what Simon would have wanted. Thank you.
You look great. You too. Smashing.
Very stylish.
God, we look ridiculous. This is. You know, clearly Simon influenced us a lot, and just as clearly, there were some things only Simon could pull off.
And that explains my deep feelings of shame, and I'm overheating.
I know.
in this Scottish sweater.
But Daniel, we should have known. You see, I mean, Simon's at the bar too high. If you remember, when we met at the Greenwood Fathers group, right when we first met him.
Yeah. And when he said, "Hello, chaps, I'm Simon."
I mean, right away, we knew this guy is more of a man than any of us. Then we find out not only is he, incredibly handsome, super sweet, funny, but then also he's like a sophisticated wine expert,
An amazing singer.
incredible cook.
Gardening, come on.
I mean, and what an athlete, right? I mean, it was obvious that this guy was a problem. Okay. So we asked a favor. Tone it down. Would you?
Dial it back.
Could you? We're just average guys trying to stay afloat. But with every skill you share, you leave us gasping for air. In this contest, you're winning all the votes. My wife loves you, Simon.
And my wife's crying.
Be more like him, his accent's so divine. Well, they love the way you talk, and from behind they watch you walk. Next to you, my sex appeals decline. All our kids love playing
With you, they're all saying,
that dad looks exactly like King John. We're just jesters in your court, coming up a little short. Us lesser dads, guess we'll keep trudging on. Now we're gathered together.
there's been a change in the weather.
Sometimes I don't really feel you're gone.
As we look around this place, you're in every single face, asking us to carry your baton. On and on, on and on, on and on.
That was amazing and tough to follow. Anyway, my name is Chris. I want to say a few words about Simon and how I sang with him, and we all sang with him in the pipes for a decade or more. We had children together at Greenwood School, and Simon and I were rough but enthusiastic co-leaders of the pipes when Peggy couldn't lead us at something or other at a time during the winter fair, or taking groves with parents through downtown Mill Valley, singing Christmas carols, charming our way into D'Angelo's and stopping everyone, with our songs. And Simon and I love to sing, and so we made up events so that we could sing. He is a spark of joy, that man, and his childlike exuberance was just irresistible for me. And he also came to parties at our home and would sing with the boys and I under our dome in our entryway, even while there was a party going on around the corner. And suddenly there were other people coming to sing because you could hear your voice amplified if you stood in the right place under the dome. And people would be leaving the party finally, and we'd be like, bye, go. Anyway, we miss you, we love you, and we feel lucky and grateful that you were part of our lives. Without further ado, though, we're going to sing two songs. One is called Song of Peace, or Finlandia, and the other one is Irish Blessing. We believe that he brought these songs into our group, called The Pipes because of Gary Yost. Have to give you that. Yeah, Gary named our group The Pipes. Anyway, so if we could...
Tenor, bass, trumpet comes in on 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1.
This is my song, O God of all the nations, a song of peace for lands afar and wide. This is my home, the country where my heart is. Here are my hopes, my dreams at holy shrine. But other hearts in other lands are beating with hopes and dreams as true and high as mine. My country's skies are bluer than the ocean, and sunlight beams on clover leaf and pine. But other lands have sunlight too and clover. The skies are everywhere as blue as mine. Oh, hear my song, the God of all the nations, a song of peace for their land and for mine.
We are going to sing Irish Blessing now, and I just want to say the pipes, and I will take it through one time just so you get the feel for it. And if you would like to join us the second time through, the words are in your programs.
This is the start. 1, 2, 3.
May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back.
So I've got a brand new set of contacts, and I definitely picked a too small font, so bear with me. My name is Taylor, and I was lucky enough to call Simon a dear friend. Simon didn't do anything halfway. He was, as you well know, all in everything he did. He poured himself into his friendships with such grace and loyalty. His numerous passions included singing, rugby, wine, making jam, having a good laugh, long dinners with friends, Guy Fawkes night on Mere Beach, and a really, really good Devonshire clotted cream. The list goes on. While our paths originally crossed through our kids, we forged a deep and lasting friendship in an unlikely place. Folsom Maximum Security Prison. We were both involved with a nonprofit organization many of you know called Inside Circle, a great passion of Simon's. This group is devoted to supporting incarcerated men who have often been written off by the world. During weekly group sessions, they do the hard work of being honest with themselves. We participated in several 3-day weekends inside the chapel at Folsom, sitting with this remarkable group known as the Dragon Clan. I'll never forget walking across the prison yard behind Simon. His distinctive hat drew stares and, yes, some heckles from the prisoners he passed. But Simon was unflinching, eager to learn from and connect with these men. Over those precious days, Simon uncovered profound parts of himself, all while offering his own open-hearted presence. Yet again, he was all in. Samuel, the flying prophet, Lean Jean, the dancing machine, just to name a couple. I remember looking over at Simon sitting quietly with a prisoner in his 70s, known to everyone as Father Dragonheart. After a long pause, Simon slowly leaned in and gave him a huge bear hug. These men felt something rare and unique in his presence, just as we all did. And Simon would tell anyone who would listen about the impact these experiences had on his life. He took the gold he found in that darkness and started hosting regular men's circles at his Sausalito office. He welcomed men from all backgrounds, including many who were formerly incarcerated. It's possible to go through a lifetime and not meet someone as courageous and compassionate as Simon Littler. If you're here, you were lucky enough to experience his relentless love and boundless enthusiasm in some way. He faced life's inevitable challenges with dignity and humility. I feel profoundly grateful to have known him, and profound sadness that he was taken from us too soon. Okay, I'm on a time schedule, so I'll close with a poem that's very dear to me called The Old Boatman. Like an old rowing boat on a lake, your number is finally called. You who've spent a lifetime spreading kind ripples with long oars and helped those who circle or ground themselves among the reeds. You who've taught us how things float on water. Go now as a ripple yourself, effortlessly lifted and carried downriver, like an old king to the sea. Love you, mate.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel. For those of you who I haven't met and I'm not in your program, I was a late addition. I'm the mother of Evie and V, and I wasn't planning to speak today, but I realized that I hold a unique set of memories. During the years we spent together, I was witness to arguably the most consequential moments in Simon's life, which were welcoming Evie and V into the world and his becoming a father. And this role of daddy was his most treasured, most joyful, most precious one, in public and private. For someone otherwise hailing from the 18th century, Simon was a thoroughly modern father. He changed the diapers, he got up when they cried at night. He took on this new job with passion, to keep them safe, to care for them, to make them smile. Anyone who witnessed him could attest to the absolute glow that fatherhood brought him. And the girls, who don't even remember much of those early years, were blessed with this heart that was just bursting with joy every time he saw them. Simon would sing to them, holding their little bodies against his chest. He made up stories of adventure and magic, often featuring a trusty Land Rover and set in the English countryside. Every word of this is true. He insisted they be raised bilingual, so they knew that if they were thirsty, they must ask for a glass of water. He was a magic maker. As we together schemed ways to delight the girls, fashioning reindeer tracks on the driveway or laying out evidence of fairies and elves, the child in him twinkling every bit as much as the kids. The gifts that he bestowed on these young lives can barely be counted. But among them are love of gardening and nature, chickens and ducks, and building things. A penchant for collecting interesting rocks on our hikes. Lots of them, to be carried back by us. Entrepreneurship. The girls started a business selling eggs and hatching chicks. They have joined in baking cakes and making chutneys and jams since they could hold a wooden spoon. And early chef's training. I remember a certain video of Bee perfectly chopping vegetables with a real knife in kindergarten. Evie used to make these concoctions of various pressed herbs and flowers and who knows what else, mixed with water and bits from the kitchen, and eagerly serve them to Simon as soon as he came in the door. And he would slow down to receive them with smiling enthusiasm and a sommelier's discerning palate. Is that garlic and vanilla? A bit of nasturtium? Some twigs? And a bit of mint. Because of his love for sailing, he enrolled the girls in a camp one summer in Sausalito when they were 6 and 8, and they both fell in love with the sport, becoming avid competitive sailors and now coaches to the next generation. He was silly and witty and patient, and he shared many of his stories enough times that they won't forget the Grampy they never knew, or the antics of his pet rooster, or the time as a choir boy when his pubescent voice broke performing at a wedding. Then there's rugby. If you should ever have the chance to watch Evie throw the full force of her body to tackle a girl twice her size, or to see Bee get hold of the rugby ball and take off like a racehorse, you should. And if you should think to cross one of them, I don't recommend it. They are beautiful, yes, and they are strong, bright, capable, courageous, and tenacious, like their dad. I know for certain that if anyone were to ask Simon what he was most proud of, what the greatest achievement of his life was, how he wants to be remembered, it is for these two incredible humans who he loved more than I or anyone else can possibly convey. When we are missing his light, we need only to look at these two. Thank you.
Simon. And thank you all for being here to celebrate him and to be in the sadness and to honor his really big life. I met Simon at a friend's fall harvest party about 8 years ago. And I remember seeing him outside, and he was in this flannel shirt and his brown felt hat, and he was pressing apples in an old-fashioned apple press. And it was this time of year, so the light was changing and the whole scene was cast in this golden glow. And I thought I've only ever seen someone like that in a Barber catalog. Finally, a little bit later, he came over and he offered me a cup of tea in that deep, rich voice. We had a chemistry that just made everything feel possible. I loved how he could dream so big, and I'm good at checklists and timelines. And together we created a life we both really loved. About 3 years after we met, we found a home in Muir Beach where he could have a garden and build a chicken run with the girls, and we could all fall asleep listening to the waves. When I think of that chapter, my favorite image is the four of us wandering down the little lane in the evenings towards the beach, and Evie and B would be racing ahead on their scooters, and the dogs would be chasing behind them. And then Simon would be meandering, and like every 5 yards, he would stop to chat with a neighbor that he saw driving by in the car or up on the deck. And I'd always be nudging him because it was getting dark. But it felt like we found a place that we really belonged. We got married in Dorset, England, in a church that reminds me so much of this one. And then we came home and we had another big celebration in Muir Beach with all our people here. And that was about 3 weeks before he got sick. People ask me about those 2 years, and it was awful in all of the ways you can imagine. But we were buoyed by our family and our community. You all showed up relentlessly, offering rides to appointments, offering warm meals, time with Simon, money for treatments, and just your love and your support. And Mom, thank you for everything you did for us, including remodeling your home so that the four of us and 2 dogs could move in. Thank you. Simon lived the last 2 years of his life the same way he lived all the other years of his life. It was like the brightness of his heart was even brighter against the dark. I witnessed someone stripped of so many of the things that had defined him, like his big booming voice that could just captivate a room with stories of wine and world travels, and his rugby player's strength that he was always using to build things and carry things and help friends. And what remained unchanged was his immense capacity to love and to be loved. All of you here today in this overflowing venue are a testament to his love. Sometime last winter, we had the idea of putting together a book of his poetry. And I saw his courage as he started to shift from his optimism and his courage to beat the odds, to thinking about how he wanted to be remembered. The poetry book was something he told me he wanted to do when we first met. So it was a dream he'd had for a long time, and we realized it was the time. It wasn't until we started unearthing dozens and dozens of notebooks that he'd kept since childhood that we realized the extent of his writing. This poetry book became his purpose in his last months. And I think he saw it as a sort of map that could point us all toward the inner depths of his heart, even once he was gone. At one point, he said to me, pointing at all the stacks of poems we had, "You will always be able to know me through this." And I also heard him say to someone, "I'm a poet, I worked in the wine business, but really, I'm a poet. Thank you, Lynn and Elspeth and John and Dawn, and the illustration team, Evie and B, and Steve and Paul. It was a family effort. Because of all of you, we actually have copies of his poetry book here today, so you can all have a copy. I want to end with the last poem he wrote. This was about 6 months before he passed away. Words were getting very difficult for him at that point, and so he slowly and patiently dictated this to a friend. It speaks to where he was in his heart at the end of his journey, and I think can offer us comfort that he found a place of peace with letting go. The title is The Truth. The truth is, I understand something. It's a wondrous understanding to have. The true understanding of I don't know. And so I fight on. And so I fight less. And so I stop fighting. Because this is the place of eternal love. It is an extraordinary universal truth. I would share it with everyone, but everyone has to find this truth for themselves. But when you find it, I will be waiting there.
Good evening, because it is evening now. And what a gift it is to be in this sanctuary. Wherever you are, put your head, you're lucky enough to be by the walls. Just everyone, please touch the wooden living heart of this sanctuary. Chip, will you come just for a minute and
Sure.
and stand?
You want me to tell everybody
I
what I told
do.
you? I thought you might.
I do, because it's so important. The poem that Vanessa just offered on truth, the root is tree, trough, trouble, teaching, and we are in a very alive wooden building full of love and communion. Thank you for welcoming us in the way you did, and a bit about the wood, because it is such an incredible story. What you told us.
So as you, I'm sure, are aware, for the members of our community as Christians, the life of Jesus is important to us. We had a very interesting gentleman who was a member of our congregation a few years ago who was an architect, and his wife died. And we held the memorial service here. And in his eulogy, he spoke about this place and what it meant to him and his wife. And what he said was, when I started coming to church here, it struck me that this church was built in the late 19th century when old growth redwoods were being farmed along the coast. This church was built with old growth redwoods. Old growth redwoods live for thousands of years. So what he said, and I got chills when he did, he said the wood that was used to build this church, when it was alive, Jesus was walking the earth. And I've never forgotten.
It's why we can be who we are. And this was Simon's house of worship. And I think there was a little trouble on the side. He had lots of hustles on the side. But you're the Greenwood Pipes, and you're sitting where the choir first sat, where he sang when he was part of this church. And the organ pipes behind and the pipes beginning when we came in were held in that mystery of sound moving through life to hold us up and give us courage. And it's why we can be intimate, in the Zen world. And I know Vanessa from when she was a little girl coming to Zen Center in the garden to plant a tree to remember her father with her mother. In that world, we say there are 3 tenets that hold us, and they're so alive today. Just don't know. Not knowing is most intimate, as in the poem. And witness what is, and then get up and make a positive difference in the world. Not just face a wall and be grim and sanctimonious. Get up and serve like Simon Littler does and did. Too soon. He passed away too soon. I remember meeting Simon the first time, of course, in the garden. He was very at home in a messy, productive, disorganized, and utterly fertile garden. He just opened up his arms. He was so happy and headed toward the back of the garden where there's a strong line of black elderberries. I love Sambucus nigra. What variety is it? I'm sorry, I'm mutilating the language. And I assured him it was Hochberg from the 1850s. And he was very happy. And we know that the essence of the Hochberg elderberry flower was infused into cordial and poured into the wedding cake in England of Prince Harry and Princess Meghan. Suffused in the wine of it all from the elder. So when Simon got sick, I went to the Hochberg elderberries and picked a branch and plunged it down in sand and perlite and prayed a little bit, not too much. Too much prayer is not so good. Just a little bit of prayer, just an essence of prayer. And that stick shot into root. So behind the orchids is a little, right next to Simon, there's a little tree that we will entrust to the earth in Muir Beach, above the community center, at the gateway. And how appropriate, at the gateway to the wonderful, magnificent Edinburgh Botanic Garden, 2 plants, 2 elders standing there, elderberries standing there, and every day that the head of the garden entered the garden, he took off his hat and bowed to the elders. Elderberry, fire. The word means fire, like the fire that's blown through a flute, the panpipes, panacea. This medicine from the elderberry is older than time and more efficacious. Yes, antiviral, yes, all kinds of great qualities, antiviral. Let me just read it out because it's worth it. All parts of this plant are medicine. It boosts every immune system, clears the skin, it's rich in fiber, clarifies the lungs, and please, in honor of Simon, a little bit of elder opens up the brain when it's tightening and oxygenates and cuts down the expansion. So this plant will be entrusted to the ground above Muir Beach in the winter with just the family. And there won't be a plaque that says this is Simon's elderberry plant. There'll just be the plant at the gate, welcoming and reminding us that medicine and disease subdue each other, and this whole world somehow, miraculously, is medicine. So we began with the pipes, and underneath a good piper, there's always the drone, the quiet, the old notes, the song without words. There's always that pulse, and then the lilting pipe above it all. Then I'm not speaking metaphorically or symbolically. This is our life. That long, deep drone, and then the piping above it. And the very last time we were with Simon, remember, Vanessa, we were together, it was in May, I think, and he was well enough to come into the garden. He walked really slowly, and it didn't matter, we waited, walked with him really slowly, sat down, and we had a pretty good high tea. We had a big bowl of compost. I brought a bowl of that compost today. It'll be over in at the what's it called?
Reception.
Yeah, it's at the next thing that we do. I'm sorry. I'm here, not there. There's a big bowl of compost, and there's also a little bowl of sunflower seeds, because on that last time we were together, he took some sunflower seeds along with each of us. We each had a little pot. We put a sunflower seed from the Hopi black dye sunflower from the Hopi world. We put it into pots and then blew some hope on it. Not all of them germinated, but many did. And one of those sunflowers, standing at about this height, is over by the water blessing table at the reception that we'll see as we leave this hall. So please come close, take some seed, put a little compost on the beautiful elderberry plant that will be planted for him and for all beings. And let's keep the links alive. Keep the links alive. I think it was so beautiful to sing with the pipes. We're not going to sing now, but let's just together lift up this prayer and send it out. Send it out. And you have this prayer in your hands. You're taking it home. Have this prayer in your hands. Wherever you go, when you're called, you can offer this prayer. So let's just speak the words together in the sanctuary of this extraordinary church. And then the piper will carry us out. Are you ready? May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. May the rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the hollow of his hand.